Hi, my name is Kristen Najjar, and I'm presenting my PBL on family history and narratives. Growing up, my family history and the stories a part of it were really important to me. It was important to me that I knew that my great-grandfather and many great-grandfathers before him were subsistence farmers in the land between the rivers area in West Tennessee. They were poor but hardworking. It was also important to me to know about my great-grandfather on my other side of the family, who was an immigrant from Lebanon. I loved hearing stories about my grandfather and grandmother meeting in Blackpool, England during World War II and falling in love. I enjoyed hearing stories about my Nana studying her family history and deciding to stop studying it after she came across a rash of horse thieves in the family. There are so many stories in my family that helped define and shape my identity. Growing up, and it was always and continues to be important to me to know those stories and see how they changed my identity. My PBL is going to take place in an 11th through 12th grade composition class and will take approximately 6 weeks to complete. I have several goals for my students, several primary goals, and those are that the students will complete primary document research on their ancestry. This will involve a family tree that they're going to complete. Students are also, I hope for students to also utilize relational and creative problem-solving skills to uncover and present relevant facts and stories about their family history. I want students to really delve into the research aspect of this project as they research both their family history and the historical context in which their family lived. I also hope for that students will creatively interpret family narratives into an original historical narrative. After students have researched their family tree broadly, they're going to have the opportunity to take one of their favorite family stories and turn it into a historical narrative. I also hope for students to discover broadly and specifically how previous generations shaped the present. I want for them to recognize that their specific ancestors have changed who they are today. I also hope that students will be challenged to make decisions that will positively shape future generations. I want them to think through the ways that their ancestors have shaped their lives and be challenged to make decisions and act in a way that will shape their future generations positively. The problem question that I'm going to ask students to consider throughout this project is, how do our ancestry and family narratives define and mold our lives? And how can we utilize this understanding in our interactions with others? Essentially, I'm asking students, why does it matter who your family is? And what can you learn from it? And how can that change how you treat others? Our ancestry shapes our personal identity, and knowing how those individuals shaped us can help us make decisions that are responsible and respectful, affect future generations positively. Knowing these things should also help us live as active participants in history. There's a lot of great literature about family history and family narratives. I focused on 3 PBLs that for high schoolers that deal with family narratives. Those 3 PBLs were by Julio Delgado and Dan Wise, Rachel Maida, and Randy Shearer. Each of these PBLs gave great examples of student work, assessments that the teachers provided, rubrics for different activities, and the way that the teacher organized and managed their project. I was also inspired by Kelly Gallagher, who wrote, among many other things, Deeper Reading. Kelly Gallagher offers teachers lots and lots of different ways to encourage and prompt students to make connections between the text and their real life, and also shows them ways how to read and write deeply and critically. Finally, I read a number of things by Eviatar Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel talks a great deal about the way that our ancestry shapes our personal identity. Reading his sources helped me think through vocabulary that I would utilize in my PBL. My project is divided into 4 different parts, 4 main activities. The first activity is a conversation and reflection paper. This is going to be simply asking the student at the very beginning of this project to go find a relative of at least 1 generation older and talk to them, have a conversation. This is by no means a formal interview. It's simply trying to help students open up conversations and relationships with relatives in ways that they might previously have not considered doing. I hope that through this conversation, the students will learn about specific family history and also about family narratives so that they can be preparing to write their own historical narrative. After they have a conversation with this family member, they're going to write a reflective paper. And this paper is informal as well. It is simply 1 to 2 pages discussing what the student learned about their family and about this person, about their childhood, the things that they enjoyed doing, the things that they disliked, maybe historical events that they lived through, reflection on what they learned about how they were related to this person. Obviously, the student does not need to have this conversation face-to-face. I'm very aware that there are a lot of family members that are separated by many hundreds and thousands of miles. Students can, of course, use the telephone to interview, or I would highly recommend that they use things like Skype, where they can actually see the person's face as they're talking to them. After their initial conversation and reflective paper, students will complete a family tree. This family tree will be of 3 generations on at least one side of their family. Students will be required to conduct primary research in order to uncover important facts about each individual, and also potentially stories about those individuals. They will be required to interview family members, and they'll also be asked to research primary documents, such as diaries, letters, or birth certificates. I am definitely aware that there are lots of students who may not know who their family is because they were adopted. In this case, I would ask the student to research their adopted family. There are also lots of students who have extremely difficult relationships with their families that they're not able to overcome. I do want students to work through relationships with their family. I don't think that this is going to be an easy project because family issues are difficult. However, if the student does have insurmountable obstacles with their family, then I would work with that student to find a way for them to do a research project that wouldn't require them to directly interact with family members. The next section that will begin at about the halfway point of this 6-week project is a historical narrative. Throughout their conversation and reflection paper and family tree, students will be hopefully learning lots of stories about their family. Every family has great stories, even if they don't regularly tell them. I know my family does. I've heard all my life about one of my great-great-grandfather's brothers who spent more time in a covered wagon between Tennessee and Texas than he did in either place. When he died on the road between the two, his brother, not knowing what to do with his body, put him in a barrel and pickled him to take him back to Tennessee to have him buried. Every family has fantastic stories like these that are very colorful and in a neat, rich historical context. I'm going to ask the students to take one of those family stories that they really enjoyed, that really spoke to them personally, and generate a historical fiction piece out of that. The student will have to conduct historical research in order to appropriately and accurately write their story within the historical context, and then they will write a fiction piece on that story. I think this piece will probably be about between 7 and 10 pages. The final component of this project is a presentation and reflection paper. By the end of this, students will have hopefully talked to multiple family members, will have delved deep into their history with primary documents and texts, and will have embraced the family stories that are a part of their family. They're going to present their findings in an evening event where I will ask parents, family members, other teachers, students to come and watch. I would hope to invite members from a local assisted living place to come for an evening of family stories and ancestry. This presentation will include highlights from their findings of their family tree, and will also include a retelling of their story. Finally, students will write a short reflection paper. This reflection paper will be a way for students to more formally express exactly what learning about their family meant to them. What did they learn? Did they learn that their ancestors affected them positively or negatively? Why is it important that they know this? And how can they use this understanding to challenge themselves to make decisions and act in a way that will seek to affect future generations positively? I'm really looking forward to incorporating this PBL into my future composition classroom, and I thank you so much for listening. Good night.